Lately, I've been more into acoustic sounds, especially acoustic guitar. I just like how it sounds. I mean, an acoustic guitar recorded well is like my favorite. Like it just, hearing that on nice speakers really wide and really, it's just really, really nice. I don't know, it's just probably my favorite thing to listen to, for sure. I use FL Studio because it was one of the first programs I got introduced to. FL Studio is just, for me, the best workflow. And when we do the track by track, you'll kind of see why. But it's really easy to get an idea down and then bounce it into audio and then manipulate it and chop it up. And that's what's really important to me. Like ease of like just use and being able to get ideas down quick. Teardrops. So this song is called A Way to Say Goodbye. For this one, I wanted to start with guitar. So I went and got my guitar and went into open D, and then put a capo on the first fret and just started messing around and came up with the first melody and then the strumming melody. So before, actually, when I first started doing dubstep, I have this song called Luna that has like a lot of acoustic elements. And yeah, I mean, it's just always been something that I've been interested. So when I open up a session, it has this template always, which I've made within FL Studio. And I usually put the vocal at top. At this point, I didn't have a vocal. This is like the very first creative part of writing the song, so there's no vocal yet. And then my drums, and then bass stuff, and then synths. Usually I end up having way more synths than this, so it'll kind of, sometimes they'll spill over into different sections. And then the sound effects are always like down here, but there will be more than just this. So it's kind of just a general template kind of thing. So yeah, and then I have my mixer set up to where these channels are already routed into like buses, and my bass stuff is going into a bus, and my drums are going into different buses. So it's just nice to have kind of a general template set up, because when I do start writing, it makes it really easy to just get in there and like not have to do this every time. Like coloring things and naming things, even if they're like the tracks don't wind up perfectly where they're supposed to be, it's nice to have like a general outline. So with this song, it's started with acoustic. I actually recorded everything in FL Studio as well. Yeah. So I just pulled out my guitar, and it's actually in open D, and I put the capo on the first fret. So that's how I played it. And it just has this finger picking, and then it goes into the strumming. And then I just wanted something really simple and like, you know, build up behind it. So I did like the, you know, it's like a acoustic sounding kick and just a hi-hat. And then a really simple bass. And then I wanted a lead line on it, so I went to Omnisphere. These are all bounced out in audio, you'll see, because when I work on stuff, I'll immediately bounce it to audio just because it's easy to see, and when I get further on, you'll see I'll cut out a lot of different sections to make things really articulate, but I'll always keep like the MIDI kind of around just in case I want to add another layer to it. So the MIDI for that is right here. And I have a ton of different layers of that, which are all right here. And it's all layered, and yeah. So that's how it fits together. then the pad comes in. With the claps. And this is another big lead. And that's Omnisphere as well. So yeah, this was all written fairly quickly, and it's a bit disorganized because this is like the writing process. This is when I just get to sit down and be really creative and kind of like write a song and not super worried about mixing at this point. And this is my favorite part. I would do this all day, every day if I could. When I do more complex drum stuff, I use this a lot. SliceX, which is an FL Studio plugin for chopping things up. I use that all the time. And then we go on to this section. The melody changes, and I wanted something that was like more energetic and a little more uplifting. So this is where the melody switches, and then that's actually the melody for the drop section, and I'll add a lead on top of it. And you'll notice this isn't how the final section turns out, like the final song, because previous to the drop, I end up messing with a lot of things, because this is like the first section, and then I'll stem it out and then work on it again. So this will sound a bit different. I don't know if that's too loud. But so yeah, you got the piano. And this is what I'm talking about with FL Studio. Like for me, I wanted that snare to come in. So like you bounce out the audio and then you drop it back in, and then you can get it to sound like, without that reverb and stuff in there. And that's why I bounce everything. Then you got the drop section, which, so here I have, and I have it throughout this whole section too. This is a sidechain track. So it's just a kick that I use, and then I have volume automation on it that's triggering a sidechain. Snare build up, and then this is the kick and the snare, and then the hi-hats. Which is all pretty basic stuff. Got the sub in there, and then 2 layers of bass. And this is actually the same bass that I use in You Gotta Go. I use this layer all the time. Actually, it's this one. And that's from out of Massive. And then this is just a bunch of layered pads. And then this is the main lead. Which is also just a bunch of, I'm not sure where it is because I bounced it out into audio already, but I'll find it. No, it's not it. There it is. So I'll make the melody, and then I'll try it in a bunch of different synths, and then just layer them, and then EQ them all differently, and then it sounds like this. When I'm doing stuff like this, with these kind of big pads, like if you keep them in MIDI, they generally have long release times. So for something like this, I want it to like cut out completely. So that's another benefit of doing everything audio, because you can chop those big release times while you still have a big reverb and everything going on. It just cuts out immediately. So working in audio is the way to go, and that's why FL Studio is so great, because the audio manipulation is fantastic. And then just small things like this, like I want a little reverse coming up to that. And then for that, just simple, like, I'll go to a percussion and be like, here's a hi-hat, and then you reverse it, and then you have that little lead in. That was a bad example. We'll try this one. So, and you can do that with all different kinds of stuff. Like, I have a ton of cool sample packs that have different kind of sounds that would be like I was saying before, like these boot stomps. Something like this, and then you just reverse it. I mean, that's how easy it is with FL Studio, and that's why I like it so much. Reversing or pitching down if you want it to sound like something much bigger than it is. Like, just the manipulation of the audio is fantastic. I mean, you can go crazy with it, but yeah, that was a tangent. Yeah, so this is the drop section. It's just got the main melody, the big lead, and then just kind of the more articulate stuff in throughout there. And then this is and then this is my favorite section of the song, where it goes to triplets. So for this section, I just wanted something that you would have, like that a band would do, you know, that's like a very like acoustic or like a rock thing, and I wanted to do that with synths. And so this is how it turned out. So, I mean, I feel like this section's kind of pretty self-explanatory with the kick, like how you would do it as a drummer, and that's kind of when I'm writing this kind of stuff. That's how I think about, like, how would I play this section as a drummer? Yeah, and then got the sub, and this is just like some cool fills that I made with using an LFO to like. And then just like, I think these were sections from earlier on. And then I have these sound effects that I've made that I use all the time. And that's just cool, like, kind of stuff sitting up on the sides that, just layers and layers of things. It's just layering cool things and then figuring out where, like, you want, like, reverses and like that, things like that to make the snare sound like so. Basically adding small things like this, it makes it interesting, you know, having reverses go up to things and then using LFOs in ways that make it sound like it's going. That's the fun part. That's what I really like doing. And then it goes into this triplet section, which is my favorite part by far, because the only thing is, like, it's just totally not a dance floor thing. So when I play this live, I'll probably not use this section and just kind of like make a DJ edit. but yeah, it's triplets, so it's a lot of metals in triplets, so I feel like a certain kind of affinity for it. So. So I'll just play the drum part. I have the kick and the snare on the actual timeline. And then I'll do the more intricate drum stuff in MIDI, like I was saying before. So. And like this would be a drum fill kind of thing. Yeah, drum fills up there. And in case you don't know how to do triplets in FL Studio, you just go up here and change the grid. Actually, right here, this little guy, and just go to third beat or third step or whatever instead of cell. And I do that all the time because it's awesome, and I love triplets. And yeah, you can also do that on this timeline. You just go third or third beat, but those two will do it. And yeah, so that's how I'll do that. And just a lot of cool snare sounds and stuff like that. And then also, like, I'll come in here and add some like cymbal stuff on the timeline. Depends on, I mean, so for this section, I'm not trying to get too crazy about organization. Like, it definitely want it to be organized, but like, it's more about being creative and trying to get the idea down and like hearing something in my head and then just doing it as fast as I can, so I can keep moving in that kind of workflow. And then got the bass, and I seem to have a piano still sitting on there. Clearly wasn't super organized at this point, but this is the bass, and it has a layer of omnisphere on top of it. Takes a second to load, but and then the guitar, everything's in triplets, of course. But and this is actually the same lead that was in the beginning, but it just has like a triplet kind of I'm not sure what you call it, just rhythm to it. It's actually this lead. And that's what I'll try and do a lot of times, is reintroduce melodies, but in a different way, and with maybe a different bass line underneath them, because I think that's really interesting. And just layering cool sound effects over top of it, like this is just the sound effect stuff. And you'll hear this in almost every one of my songs. It's just a quick pitch down with a big long reverb, and I just bounced it out, and I have that in my sample folder of like my own personal samples that I use all the time, and it just adds a really cool, like, I mean, it's not super present, and a lot of this stuff you'll notice isn't very like overpowering. It's just adding layers of different things that bring together a really cool background. So basically, I'll do all this stuff, and then at this point, I decided to bounce all this stuff out into stems to make it easier to work. There was a few reasons for that. It was also because I was touring a lot and I was using this laptop. So in order to get it to this computer now that I use in the studio, I had to bounce it. But been starting to do that anyways, so it was just the right time to do it. And this is the stem version, which I'll take this section and basically put it over here as well and like finish the song. So this part is when it's all bounced out into stems, and then I'm just working on the mix and all that stuff. So all the synths are together, and it's all one big thing. And then I worked with Matthew Coma and Sam Bear to get the vocal, and yeah, this is the final vocal.
Teardrops are racing a stopwatch. Hope is in, and every July will go cold without you. And I hold on to every piece of you that I made up in my mind until I find a way to say goodbye.
So this section, I'm still adding new elements, like this guy. I'll basically kind of listen to it and think, does this need any more layers to make it sound full and interesting? And this isn't necessarily my favorite part of the songwriting process, because I'm kind of just working with what I've already created and trying to make it sound maybe fuller, or work on the mix. And yeah, that's kind of what I do. You'll see got the kick and the snare still separate, but everything else, like all the drums and stuff, they're all in one thing. And I'll keep my subs separate too, because those are generally the only things that I'm really messing around with at the end, is the sub and the kick and the snare and stuff like that. And you can see there's also extra little layers of things, like I was talking about, like this is the original one that I had during the writing part, and then I was like, oh, I need to beef that up a bit, so I'll come in and I'll basically do it again and then layer them. I would be a terrible lyricist. I'm not a writer by any means. I really like working with vocals too. That's always like, when I get to work on vocals, it's like, oh, cool vocal day. I'll finish the song, or I'll come up with a song, and then I'll be like, okay, it's time to start looking for a vocal. And then, I mean, when I work with vocalists, I always have a general like rule of what I like and I don't like, as far as like, I don't want the song to be about anything that's going on now necessarily. Like, it has to be timeless or metaphorical, not like, you know, hey, let's go party tonight, or like, I don't know, stuff like that. There's a lot of music out there right now like that, so I don't feel like I need to make stuff like that. So another cool thing with that I like to do with delays and stuff is not necessarily put a delay on everything, like only when it needs it. So like, you know, you got the vocal,
And it kills to say I knew you'd let
no delay,
me down. You let me down.
but just right there, you know, like, and I think that's just a copy of this part. You'd let me down.
Knew you'd let me down. You let me down. As I fumble for the words to say so long, for now.
And the thing is, a lot of people will throw delay on the whole vocal, and it can get it kind of messy. So just delaying a few phrases is, I find it really useful, because it makes it sound big and, you know, interesting, but it doesn't fumble up all the other words.
Well, every love song.
Oh, and that's another thing that I do a lot is You take a vocal and you reverse it and you put a delay on it, and it makes it like build up into it. Sometimes like when you have a vocal that you feel it just starts too abruptly, like all of a sudden it's there, doing something like that will really help it have a lot more flow into it. And what you do is you would take, you know, this section, and this is why I love Fruity Loops, because you'll see how easy this is. And then make unique. And I just want the well every part, so I would make that. And then stick a delay on it. Make it a ping pong, because that's interesting if you pan one like this. And record it. I'll just put it on the desktop because I don't want to make that session any more messy than it is. Vocal, reverse, example. And then flip it back around forward. And then you got your, which I guess that was kind of not the right timing to do it in. I guess I would make it like a slower delay, but that's how you get those like reverse in kind of things. And you can do that with synths, which also make really cool sounds. I mean, you can do that with everything. And that's the whole like cool thing about bouncing audio with FL Studio is like you can bounce things out and you can bring them back in really quick, and then you can like manipulate them however you want. Like if this was a synth and I thought that was a cool sound, then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna pitch it down one full step and see how it sounds then, you know, and then it'd be like, clearly this is not like what you would necessarily want to do, but like I do that kind of stuff all the time with synths and things like that. I mean, these are all the audio files that are that end up in a session. So I'll record little like fills like that. And this was all in triplets. So then this is the exact same thing that I'm talking about. Like I would record it, bring it out and be like, oh, how does this sound in reverse? Oh, that's really cool. Like how would it sound like a low reverse kind of thing? And all that is just the reverb tail of some random thing, but it becomes something totally else just by like reversing it or pitching it in a different way. And that's where I think a lot of my sound comes from, like the reversing and taking reverb tails and turning them into like big old pads. And you can do that with vocals too, quite a bit. I'll generally have like some sort of vocal ambience sitting behind the tracks. Taking something like this and just dropping it into a big reverb. I use Valhalla Shimmer because it's epically long. And this is how I make a lot of those pad sounds. And it'll just go on and on and on and on and on. And you take something like that and reverse it, and or not even reverse it, just like pitch it up or down, and yeah, that's, yep. I wanted to make something that was like fun for a festival and like more sing-along and had those acoustic elements that I really like. So that's kind of how I came up with the idea of like doing a very acoustic breakdown and building it up into a big electronic, you know, big song. So something fun to play live, basically.